He was named the new sheriff of Wall Street as U.S. Attorney General for New York's Southern District. Preet Bharara led the crackdown on insider trading, winning convictions on some of the biggest names on the street. Now he's out with a new book, Doing Justice, a prosecutor's thoughts on crime, punishment, the rule of law. Thanks for joining us, Preet. It's good to see you this morning.
Good to be here.
Want to talk about the book, want to talk about your career, also want to talk about what's going on in the news, because there's a lot of it, and I know you have lots of opinions about it. But on insider trading and on Wall Street and what you spent so much of your career doing, especially in the last couple of years before Mr. Trump said thank you very much, I'm curious where you think we are now relative to then in terms of enforcement, because one of the big issues has been that there has been a lack of the kinds of cases that you were bringing during your tenure.
Right. Well, obviously we cleaned it all up. So the crime is no. Look, it's hard to tell. These things happen sometimes in waves. The insider trading crackdown began before I got to the U.S. Attorney's Office. My predecessor and others in the Southern District began to bring certain kinds of insider trading cases, just like they brought certain kinds of public corruption cases, and we built on that and used additional wiretaps and brought a lot of different prosecutions. What I found, whether it's accounting fraud or Ponzi schemes or insider trading schemes, that sometimes the people who are engaged in bad conduct, they figure out other ways to engage in misbehavior, and they take their.
Are you betting there's more misbehavior today?
I'm a little bit out of the business,
right?
From the outside, I don't know. It's hard to say.
What do you make of the argument that people have made about the fact that you went after insider trading? Some of that was ultimately actually overturned.
Yeah, but then the Supreme Court reversed that overturning 8-0. So don't forget to mention that.
And but rather than go after Wall Street.
Well,
when I say go after Wall Street,
they're both Wall Street. So you
go after some of the biggest banks.
Yeah. So we went after more banks than any other office in the country. We went after J.P. Morgan. We went after Wells Fargo. We went after all sorts of financial institutions. With respect to the financial crisis, my office, along with maybe 10, 12, 13 other offices, did a lot of investigations, spent a lot of time. At the end of the day, we weren't choosing, one type of prosecution versus another type of prosecution. At the end of the day, there was a lot of reckless conduct, negligent conduct, greedy conduct, corrupt conduct that you folks, sometimes talk about. But to make a criminal case against people at the highest levels of the financial institution or anywhere else, whether it's a mob or a presidential campaign, you have to have direct evidence of the people's mental state. You need a cooperating witness, or you need an undercover phone call or something like that. And of the hundreds or maybe thousands of people who investigated those things, a recommendation to charge someone at the highest level was not made.
Right. I interviewed Rajat Gupta on the show about a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
He went to prison for 2 years. He ran McKinsey, of course, was involved with Rajaratnam. He had some critical comments about you. I want to just play what he said about his conviction and the financial crisis, and then get your reaction to it.
Okay.
Guys, let's run the tape.
I found it quite extraordinary that we fine banks billions of dollars, and yet somebody must have done that. I mean, they're admitting wrongdoing, right? And then somebody must have done that wrongdoing inside. Human beings do that. It doesn't automatically happen. And the buck should stop at the top. So none of the top management in any of our banks did anything wrong.
What do you think?
Well, he said a lot of things in that interview. I appreciate your hard-hitting interview of him, where he not only talked about, and as a pundit, what prosecution should or should not have been brought, also suggested that I went after him because I'm Indian, and he's Indian. I have some kind of self-loathing complex, which is obviously preposterous. So I don't take a lot of insight from Roger Gupta, who got a light sentence, who broke the law, who doesn't accept responsibility for breaking the law, and has a lot of excuses for his conduct.
But when you hear the critique, and it's not just his, about the larger Wall Street financial crisis issue, do you think there's something that's accurate about that?
It's like anything else. Lots of people are frustrated at the Mueller report because they wanted a particular result, because there's a lot of smoke around the idea that Donald Trump engaged in a conspiracy with his campaign did with the Russians. But the law is not so simple as that. You can't just decide you're going to bring a case unless you have the actual evidence to bring the case. We did, by the way, against Roger Gupta overwhelmingly.
And Preet, you won't like my answer to this, because I'm sure you don't think of what regulators do as shakedowns of corporations. But you heard what Jamie Dimon said. It's just easier. It's just easier for a bank to. If you had someone, you were saying it's hard to prove a crime. I'm not convinced that you can go to any CEO of any of the major banks during the financial crisis and actually even intimate that there was a crime committed. I don't, not that you can't prove it or you need a phone call or something. It just, that's not what it was. And a lot of the fines that were paid, I think were shakedown. Where'd that money go? I didn't go to the victims of the housing crisis.
I'm not actually aware of a regulatory action against a top bank official, financial institution official, based on the financial crisis. And they, by the way, have a much lower standard of proof. Look, when bad things happen, people want accountability, and I get that, and it's very frustrating for a lot of folks. But it's true. Not everything is a crime, and sometimes crimes can't be proven.
And sometimes companies that decide to just, you know, that it's easier to go ahead and just agree and pay a couple of $2 billion than it is to continue with the PR.
I guess we were not regulators. We were criminal prosecutors.
You don't want to be the new sheriff anyway. Wasn't the old sheriff Spitzer? Do you want to be the new sheriff? I mean, I would have said that.
I'm a podcast host, Joe, and I wrote a book. The sheriff talk, I'm not quite sure what's coming.
Let me ask you a related question. You brought up Mueller. In the Mueller report, clearly, depending on what you believe from the Barr report of the Mueller report, you would think this is over. However, you also worked in the Southern District. There are continuing cases that are ongoing in the Southern District. What should the public think about those cases?
I think the public needs to sort of take a step back, follow what the news reports, follow what the documents are that come out of the Southern District, if any. I think part of the problem with the media, and I'm a little bit part of the media now, is that they raise expectations. They try to read tea leaves. You know, a subpoena gets issued and people think 9 people are going to get arrested. And it may be at the end of the day that the Southern District, which is an aggressive office, I talk about the Southern District a lot in the book, not just the insider trading cases, but if you want to get an idea of the philosophy, culture, character of the people in the Southern District, you know, people should read the book. And at the end of the day, maybe there will be other charges, maybe there won't. I think we just have to wait and see.
Preet, do you think that we should just assume that Barr is bought and paid for and a crony of Donald Trump after a career of how many years of distinguished?
That's very extreme. I've never said that. I don't know who. I don't know who's saying that. So
well, I don't know. We're questioning the whole. And how about Rosenstein? When did he become a Trump crony? Both of those gentlemen decided, looked at what the obstruction evidence was, right, and both decided that it didn't rise to the level. Yeah, why do we immediately write it off as Trump cronyism?
I don't know what straw man. I don't know what straw. I know I'm not wearing. I know I'm wearing a jacket like you guys, but
I'm not a straw man. The critique, though, on Barr has been that.
Here you go.
Oh no! The critique was that this decision was made in the course of 48 hours after an investigation that lasted, years.
Yeah, no. I'll tell you what my critique is, and I've said positive things about Bill Barr. I think he's a professional. I've dealt with him before. I think people want to see the report. And particularly they want to see the part of the report that's about obstruction, because Bob Mueller himself spent 2 years and he said this does not exonerate Donald Trump. And so the devil is in the details, and you want to see what was said about those things. I think Bill Barr does, paint a nice picture of the report. Maybe it's fully accurate. It's hard for something to be fully accurate that's a tiny portion. It's 4 pages of a 400-page report. Obviously, there's a lot left out. I think people deserve to see the report. Don't you agree, Joe?
I do, but I also could understand how people say there doesn't need to be an underlying crime for there to be obstruction. But I can also make the case that if there was no collusion to begin with, then by saying, Michael Flynn's a pretty good guy, can you just lay off him? Or by saying, wow, Comey did this, that, and the other thing, and by, I don't know whether that's trying to suppress an investigation or just saying, look, there's no collusion. What are you doing this for? The other question I have for you.
But you're making my point. We should see the report, right?
Okay, fine.
You're sitting here speculating too.
No, we're all speculating. We'll see the report. But
actually, I'm not speculating.
I think that if it was distorted in a way that Mueller didn't like it, I think either he would have or one of his prosecutors would have come out and said that's not. I mean, they came out immediately and dispelled that one report from the Daily Beast or whatever it was.
It was BuzzFeed.
So here they're saying I'm exonerated, and Bob Mueller is not saying anything. How about the other thing? Would you say there was obstruction with, if someone meets someone on a tarmac, if Hillary Clinton's husband meets the last AG on a tarmac, about wiping screen, does that rise to the level of obstruction? What happened there?
I don't know. Is it Straw Man Monday? I've never argued that. I've never suggested that. By the way, yeah. Well, not in a while.
Yeah.
But by the way, the day before I got fired, I was asked to resign. Donald Trump called me on the telephone.
Right.
And one of the reasons I didn't return the call was because I didn't want other people, including perhaps Joe Kernan on the show, to suggest that it was an untoward call. because I didn't think it was appropriate to have that phone call. So I don't think that meeting was appropriate. But I guess we go back to the original point, which is we should see the report.
Okay, very rapid fire because we have 30 seconds on subjects that you may or not focused on. Elon Musk, I'm curious, as a prosecutor, do you look at what he's done and say to yourself, there's something there or not?
No comment on Elon Musk.
No, okay. Bezos, Saudi Arabia.
That sounds weird to me.
Weird to you?
Yeah,
The theory of Saudi Arabia being behind it?
all of it.
Boeing, you think there's something there?
You know, we brought significant cases against Toyota and GM when there were safety problems and lack of reporting about safety problems. I don't know, but if I were in this other district, it's something that I would probably be looking at.
And what do you think about this Nike what's his
Michael
name?
Avenatti.
Michael
Don't pretend
Avenatti.
like you don't know his name.
Michael Avenatti.
Yeah, look, the Southern District has charged him. When the Southern District charges people, they usually know what they're doing.